straight into your own project. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about also your experience with Animal Rebellion and how you got started with Grainwaves.
Sure. So, wow, of course, it's been such a ride, to be fair. So I went vegan maybe, I don't know, 4-ish years ago, maybe 3.5, 4 years ago. And I literally went full guns blazing and joined every advocate group I could possibly find. And I thought there must be a better way than this to do it all. I created a small little group called Vegan Hive just to try and attempt something different. But pretty much at the same time when Animal Rebellion launched, which is why I joined there. And I thought, well, what a brilliant idea. This is the way forward. And while I'm with Animal Rebellion, I'm thinking there's still a better way to do it. There's still a better way. And I had this idea for Grainwaves. And I mean, the theory being is that we're now at a point where we're asking businesses to change. There's so much support now for, individuals to make that transition, Challenge 22, Veganuary, etc., etc. But businesses don't really have all that support. And I wanted to make a platform where no matter what business you're in, we will help you transition. And, it's predominantly the smaller businesses that need support. But that's where Grainwaves, the basic premise of Grainwaves came from.
So you saw that we were asking for change and we were demanding that the government also assist the businesses, but that help wasn't actually there if a business did want to take us up on the invitation. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there are some organizations out there that will help specific types of businesses, predominantly farming. But if you're like a little cafe, for example, and you're thinking, oh, everyone's going vegan, but I don't really know much about vegan food, for example, there just isn't that support there for them. So we just wanted to make sure that there was a platform, no matter where you are in the world, that you can turn to and seek that support.
So am I right? This is the first time that there's a UK-based nonprofit like this, that you're the first of a kind in the UK?
I actually think we might be the first of a kind worldwide.
Really?
Yeah, I've not heard of a single organisation that will cover every single type of business.
So what are you offering help to?
So we've got kind of two kind of key goals, I guess, because we realised quite early on that just saying, yeah, we'll help all businesses, it's too much support that's going to be needed for a single organisation to be able to cope with that. So what we decided to do is that we created a group of networks, if you like, where not only did they get the support while they are transitioning, but they also get support ongoing as well. So yeah, I mean, I don't know, Ashley, I don't think that quite answered your question.
Exactly, but I was just, you're offering support to farmers, to cafes. So what is the range of businesses and organizations that you're offering support to?
Yeah, so we want to be able to offer support to every single type of organization that exists. So if you're a farmer, if you're a producer, a manufacturer, a clothes shop, a restaurant, a cafe, no matter what type of organization you've got, we want to be able to offer you support. We did realize quite early on that trying to launch with every single type of business covered is near on impossible. It's just too much of a big task. So we are starting with like the catering industry, and we're starting with farming. So we've got to a point now where we've got a few good links with a few good organizations. We've done a few trial runs with a cafe and a takeaway. So we're starting small, but the ambition is to kind of grow to cover every type of industry that's out there.
Wow, and then this is a full-time venture for you, am I right, Mark?
Yes, yeah. It's wasn't intended to be a full-time venture, but yes, it's become a full-time venture, certainly.
Awesome. Jane, of course, I also know you from Animal Rebellion, and you were very, very instrumental in the beginning of Animal Rebellion with setting up the whole talks and trainings, writing our climate talk, and all of that. So you also pretty much jumped in right away after the Autumn Rebellion into this project, which is a massive project, and again, very much needed to put the pressure on the government. So could you tell us a little bit also about your background with Animal Rebellion and also how this got started, scrap factory farming?
Yeah, so exactly as you said, Billy, I was part of the talks and training team. That's what I did for a professional living when I had time to actually earn a living and not do voluntary work for the animals. And, you know, the rebellion was really inspiring for me. I was 53 years old at the time. I'd trundled through life. I had 3 points on my driving license and never done anything really too dramatic. I'd always been a little bit of a rebel. So I spent 20 years as a volunteer with the RSPCA, 10 years on the national board, and 9 years of those for my sins on Freedom Food Assured board, really working hard to try and change things from within, to try and move things forward and be more progressive. And I was always one of the people, one of the very small number of people who would speak out and challenge things. And so when the opportunity to join the rebellion came along, I thought, you know, I've really just got to throw myself into this. I hadn't been in a tent since I was 16 years old. And suddenly there I was camping in Trafalgar Square and getting my tent confiscated and all sorts of experiences that I just would never have imagined having before. But it was hugely liberating and hugely motivational to be with that number of people who really wanted to drive change. And I think it freed up my thinking in a way that probably I couldn't have imagined.
Yeah, and same as with Mark, you also actually became vegan in the beginning of 2018. So both of you went from becoming vegan to being so intensely active right away and carrying on that level of innovation and activity. It's quite inspiring. Maybe you could just tell us a little bit about how you went vegan, because I know you were busy with animal rights for a long time before that.
Yeah, so I've been vegetarian since I was 21, so long time. And what it shows you is how hard it is, even when you're immersed in that world, and even when you're seeing footage, how you don't always join the dots up. And I think it helps you understand, if you haven't been vegan forever yourself, that everybody is on a journey, and what we must do is try and accelerate that journey and move them forward, but not forget that we had to make our own journeys and we had to find the key that motivated us too. So it's about not being judgmental, but being supportive to actually get people on that journey.
And now you also run a sanctuary, a home sanctuary, right? Or you have rescues, including farmed animal rescues.
It feels like it's grown into a sanctuary, but it's only rescue chickens and 3 rescue pigs, 3 dogs and 2 cats. So it's not that big yet, but people have asked me if I'll take more, but I think that's enough for now.
Could you just tell us a little bit about scrap factory farming? So scrap stands for, it's an acronym, isn't that right?
Yeah, so as we started to look into the issues around factory farming, we really wanted to drive home the messages of everything that's linked to it. We couldn't take a case on all of farming for tactical, strategic reasons, but looking at factory farming, so you've got the suffering of the animals, which is the S. You've got the climate chaos that all animal agriculture obviously contributes to for the C. Ravaging the planet and the environmental damage, again, that's linked to all animal farming for the R. The A and the P are a little bit more specific, or certainly more associated with factory farms. So the A is for antibiotic resistance, because a lot of antibiotics are used on farm animals, and that's obviously adding to the problems in humans. And the P is for pandemics and disease. So scrap is about getting rid of all of those through getting rid of factory farming.
So for our viewers who maybe don't know about this project, could you explain what it is basically, and also if this has any precedence anywhere, this initiative has any precedence that you know of?
Yeah. So we've got a wider campaign going, which is challenging planning applications, spreading the word, putting materials together. But specifically the legal challenge is, as far as we can tell, a world first. Nobody has challenged factory farming. Liz and Judith and Cher have challenged animal farming and pig farming and been very successful in Argentina. I think we're the first to have sort of taken that through the legal system. And so it's been a huge learning curve to see how we could make a case. We got Michael Mansfield QC on board fairly early on, who's a very well-known human rights barrister QC. And so we've really been exploring all of the avenues that are linked to factory farming and looking at how we can develop a case around that. And that's been a year's worth of researching, finding information out, networking, building up information to take forward legally, as well as background science. So the case actually goes in, it will get lodged on Monday in the court system, and will be formally out there the week after that when the papers get served on DEFRA. So that's where we are at the moment. So it's very exciting, but also it's been a huge learning curve. We've had to really learn so much about the legal system and what the law allows and doesn't allow, what the whole process of a judicial review is. And also, as part of the process, we've had to show that we've taken other steps. You can't just say we're going to court and that's it. You have to show that you've tried all sorts of other means. So we've lobbied House of Parliament members when the agriculture bill was going through, for example. We've challenged planning applications. Pete, who's on this call, has done some fantastic freedom of information requests for us, which I'm building into my witness statement later tonight. And so we've had all sorts of things that we've kind of done as part of that process.
So in short, you're taking the government to court,
yeah,
because of the risks of industrial farming. Is that right?
That's right, absolutely.
And they're counter to their duty to protect the public. Is that kind of how?
That's right. That's the main. So that's the main thread. We would have absolutely loved to have taken a case just on the animal suffering. We do believe, and we've had legal advice to say that there are definite breaches of the Animal Welfare Act in factory farming, but because that legislation is so old and goes back to 2006, it's really difficult to take a case on it. Whereas human rights and the duty of a government to protect people is an ongoing duty. So we're not challenging a specific piece of legislation, we're challenging an overall policy failure to protect people. We are putting in the animal messages, we are putting in the climate messages, we are putting in the environment messages. We're talking about all of those as much as we can, but the lead argument will be pandemic risk and antibiotic resistance as a secondary one.
Yeah, I can imagine that both you and Mark, media attention is quite crucial here, because with Mark, you want to get the word out, you want to have it that people know where they can go to, even if they haven't maybe seriously considered veganizing their business, that they might get the idea from hearing about. And I can imagine that media is extremely important with scrap factory farming, also in order to get donors, because this court case is going to stand or fall depending on funds. Am I right? Yeah, I don't know who wants to go first. Maybe Mark, and then.
Yeah, I mean, we're still at really early stages. So we officially launched in January, literally. And we're at a point where we're just now putting together a couple of promo videos, and we're going to start putting it out towards some of the vegan influencers for us getting support. So yeah, media is going to be a massive thing. Because we're such early stages at the moment, we've not got to a point where we've secured any kind of funding, but we need to get a little bit slightly further down the road. When I say we, I didn't actually mention this earlier, we've got like a core team of volunteers that's kind of helping me do this as well. I mean, Andrew, who's on the call, and Charlie. In fact, to be fair, both you and Jane have both helped a little bit as well in the past. So yeah, so we've got a core team of volunteers. We're getting to the point where we do need to get kind of some funding, and when we do that, we will certainly be getting out there and put some adverts out there.
Yeah, and eventually we would hope that the government would help farmers and transition and maybe polluting industries. So how do you see that working if in the future there starts to be more systemic support for transitioning? Would you be absorbed into a city council? Would you continue to, have you thought about what's going to happen? Because at this moment you're operating independently, but that's a very large responsibility for a very big task, which someone else should be doing, in the sense that the government should be doing that. So how do you see yourself fitting into maybe systemic change?
I mean, we've not considered it massively, but I mean, at the end of the day, we don't care who does it, how it's done, as long as it is done. You know, these organisations have to change. I mean, we don't even mind if people hear about Grainways and go and make that transition without our support. You know, it's about getting them to change and getting them to stop. It's not about getting the word name Grainways out there specifically. Although obviously, more people that know about Grainways and what we're doing, obviously you'll get more people thinking about it.
Yeah, so it's also, part of it is also simply inspiring people with the possibility that they can do that.
Most definitely.
Yeah. Are you aware of any grants or subsidies or anything that might be able to support your initiative?
There are a few out there, certainly. We have looked at a few. However, they're the one that looks most appropriate, you have to ask for crazy amounts of money and then say exactly what you're going to be spending it on. There isn't any, well, we haven't found yet any like grants for smaller kind of setups, with the exception of Veg Fund, but we've applied to them, but we're still waiting to hear back from them. So there's a few out there, but we're still kind of looking into it.
Okay. And Jane, I think you've had quite a lot of media attention already. I've seen the scrap factory farming being mentioned in many magazines and articles. Could you say a little bit about how the media has portrayed this court case, and how important it's been to get the word out there?
Yeah, we've had a little bit of interest in it, which is great, because up until now we've not really been able to talk about even going to court. So it's all been, we're doing this vague legal challenge that we can't really tell you very much about, but it is really exciting, and watch this space. Whereas now that's starting to move into a narrative of, you know, this is real, this is really happening. We've put the formal letter before action in, and, you know, the next stage is going to court. So we had really good coverage in the Independent just before Christmas, because I also got a vote through the RSPCA about calling for a ban on intensive farming. So I need to keep lobbying them to make sure they actually act on it now. But that got us a bit of coverage. The rest of the coverage so far has been in vegan media, and, you know, people who are kind of in that circle already, which is absolutely fantastic, and we're really grateful for it. And people like Liz and Judith and Cher have been sharing like mad our story on social media, and that's all been absolutely fantastic. What we really need to do going forward is use the platform of the case to get mainstream media coverage. And again, like Mark, we're not precious about who gets it, how they do it, but it's an opportunity that we really, really want to get the word out there. This is a world first. Nobody has done this. The legal challenges before, for example, the Heathrow Airport expansion, and the case taken by the young people about government's failure to protect from the climate crisis, they have reached mainstream media, and that's what we need to do. So anybody who's got any opportunity to make a story out of this and raise awareness, please take it. It's not the vegans who need to hear about this, great though that is, and hopefully some of them go and donate. We've raised £30,000, which is fantastic based on that coverage. Our legal fees are going to be 60,000 minimum, and that's without DEFRA's costs if we lose, but we're not planning on losing. And but if we can get this in mainstream media, if we can get people to start questioning what goes on in farms, if we can start getting people to understand the links between the farming of animals and human health risks, people might wake up. We all know it's a sad fact of life. When we've been out there doing outreach, not everybody is motivated by stories about the animal suffering. Some are, some get it, but they still don't change. And some do and get it and change. But there's this whole huge group of people who don't like the idea of factory farms that we can tap into and try and use this as a platform to get them to really start thinking about what's happening and the risks. the risks to their children, if we leave the climate crisis untackled, if we leave the antibiotic buildup, resistant buildup untackled, and pandemics, you know, that COVID-19 should have taught everybody how vulnerable we are. And if just one good thing can come out of the horrors of COVID-19, it would be an awareness of the risk that everybody's facing. So that we are just a tiny little group of volunteers, and we don't have that much reach. So the single biggest thing we can do is hopefully get this in the mainstream media and get people out there and talking about it. And that whatever happens with the case, if it opens up those discussions, it's worth it.
So would you say that you would like to inspire people to mount such cases globally? I think I mentioned to you before that I was speaking to an activist of 20 years or longer, actually longer, who had come to the conclusion, this is an ocean scientist who's devoted his whole life to oceanography. He'd come to the conclusion that the only way that we are going to achieve change is through legal challenges to the government. And he firmly believed that protests and you know, none of that would work. It would have to be speaking in the language they understand, divestment and legal challenges. So do you think that your challenge would be very much amplified if other groups around the world would copy your example and mount their own challenges? Is that what you'd like to see?
Yeah, definitely. If we can just inspire other people to say, you know what, let's do it. What is there to lose? Okay, we've got to worry about the financial side, but other than that, let's do this. Let's start holding governments to account. They're completely ignoring the science and the risks that we are facing. They are completely ignoring the conditions that animals are being kept in. And the UK government waffle on about we have the greatest standards in the world for animals. What a load of rubbish. It's their self-perpetuated hype, and it's got to be exposed for that. People have to see what we actually mean when we talk about these farming conditions and make that connection. And so, yeah, absolutely, Billy, if people in other countries can kind of say, you know what, we could do something similar, that would be amazing. And we'd obviously pass every bit of information on that we can, all the research we've done, all the information we've gathered. You know, we'd be absolutely delighted to do all of that.
And how can people help this campaign now? I mean, obviously donating is very important, or sharing that to possible donors. But how can people support, so the viewers, people who are going to watch this?
Spreading the word, use it as an opportunity to engage in discussion, use it as an opportunity to post it on non-vegan Facebook pages and talk about it, because factory farming doesn't seem to close people's ears in the way that a vegan message does. So it gives us an opportunity, I think, to go to that platform, to go to environmentalists. I mean, we've got organisations now like Greenpeace, Friends of the Earth, WWF, they're all talking about the need for factory farming to go. So this is an opportunity. Even David Attenborough says the planet simply cannot sustain the number of people eating meat. So, you know, there's so much traction that we could build on. And if people have got Facebook groups that they can, I don't care whether you mention Humane Being or Jane Tredget at all, but it's an opportunity for debate and discussion. And I think if people can do that, that will help us reach far more people than we can reach on our own.
Yeah, I think you're completely right that pretty much everyone is against factory farming, though I don't think they're aware of what a high percentage of animal products come from factory farming, as they seem to think we could do away with it and still continue our habits, but they'll see that's not the case. So Mark, could you also let the viewers know how people can support Grainwaves, and what kind of support could they offer if they want to support the...
I mean, we're looking for all types of support. So from people that have literally got a few minutes a month to people that have got loads of time. So if people are listening to this and think, you know what, that sounds like a really good idea, they can go to our website for a bit more information, which is just...
What's the website?
It's grainwaste.org.
Mm-hmm.
We're asking people to follow us on Facebook, so when we put out posts, get them shared and liked, those sorts of things. For people that have got ideas, you know, they might not have the time to volunteer their time to us, but they might have ideas of how we can grow and move forward. Please come to us, please approach us. You know, we're very, very open to any kind of suggestions. We just want to, you know, like Jane was saying, people just aren't aware of kind of what it's like out there. We know as much, you know, everyone that's watching this, I should imagine, kind of knows that the whole system needs to change. And we're just trying to take every avenue that's out there and make it happen. And we kind of see Grainwaves as being a big part of that.
And can you let us know, so what is a typical day or a typical week if you're busy with Grainwaves? So what would that involve?
So we have weekly meetings. So our weekly meetings are typically on a Tuesday evening, where we just kind of sit down, we kind of talk online via Zoom and kind of discuss what we're going to be doing over the next week just to move the whole system forward. So we've got, for example, people that will work on literature, we've got people working on videos, we've got people working on Facebook, bringing up Facebook posts. So we're only a small team of volunteers at the moment. So if you think you've got something that you can bring to the table and support us in other ways, you know, you might be an expert on fundraising, for argument's sake. You know, we'd all want an expert in fundraising, I think. So yeah, whatever your expertise is, you know, whatever kind of time you might have free, even if it's a little bit or a lot, you know, please approach us and we can definitely find something for you to do. Even if you think, we do sometimes speak to people and they're like, oh, I don't know anything, I'm not skilled in any area, but I like the idea. We can always find something for you, no matter what your skill level is.
Yeah, so what challenges do you expect to face though in the before the end of the year going forward? Are there things that you expect that are going to be really difficult, or how would you see the rest of this year for Grainwaves?
So we're at a point now. So we've done a trial experiment with a local cafe, which was I'll tell that story quickly. So that was a guy. The restaurant was called, well, it's a takeaway, called Burger Stacks. And I just went in there on the off chance and I just said, hi, you know, I'm launching I'm part of a group called Grainwaves. We're just launching soon. We'd like to use you as a trial. We help businesses transition. He turned around and said, oh, yeah, I've not even really thought about that before. We have got like one vegan option on the menu, but it's rubbish. And he was very, very much open to the idea of having it changed. So we helped him with his menu, came up with a few ideas for him. Then, you know, lockdown happened, so it's been a bit quiet as far as visiting goes. But he's been really, really happy. I'll keep in touch with him every now and then, and I'm due to do another visit to his store. But what we're finding as far as struggles go is its exposure. It's just, you know, not enough people know that we're about, not enough people know who we are. They see the name, it's like, oh, it's something I've not seen before, and they just move on. So we're looking for, you know, getting the word out there that this organization exists. I think that will be the biggest struggle. Yeah,
so you would be looking for media attention then. Definitely. Have you made any pitches to the media about this?
Not yet. Like I said, we've actually, the tasks for the last couple of weeks, what we're working on right now are a couple of promotional videos. Oh, yeah. And then what, you know, the hope is once we're happy with what we come up with, we're then going to start sending them out to people, and hopefully we'll get them shared about a bit.
Yeah. So Jane, how would you actually measure success if you're looking at this year? How will you measure success, or and what are your hopes to achieve in this year, 2021, the rest of this year? Could you give us an idea what you...
First and most immediate is getting my witness statement finished and in for Monday, which probably means I won't be doing too much sleeping this weekend. Second is getting some research papers analysed that the barrister wants to use. So thanks to Angie and others in the team, they're desperately scrambling through that. So those are the short-term ones, just to basically survive this week while we get the court application in. And then, of course, what we ultimately want is for factory farms to be phased out. But that's quite a high bar and doesn't happen just straightforwardly from the case. The judge isn't going to turn around and say, yes, factory farms need to be phased out. So what we want from the judge is for them to say, yes, the government is failing, go away and look at it. But of course, there's so many potential pitfalls in that. We don't want them to replace one type of farming with another that we would still consider factory farming. The world can't cope anyway if everybody went organic. And of course, as vegans, we don't want that. So it's a fine balance between driving things forward, but also making sure that there are no pitfalls in that. And really getting the messages out on the table is where we need to be. If we can start with the government doing things like putting a moratorium on planning applications, that would be a big marker of success, so that no more get through the system. If we can get the government to pledge to moving subsidies that are currently put into animal agriculture and intensive animal agriculture into transitioning organisations and paying for people like Grainwaves to help businesses, that would be brilliant. That would be a fantastic achievement. And just really seeing awareness grow in people who currently aren't aware of all the issues that go on farms. So that's quite a hard one to measure, because it's you know, we haven't got a baseline now of saying this is kind of the awareness and be able to measure it. But those are the sorts of things we want to see out of it. And as you said, Billy, if we saw another country picking up the gauntlet and saying, you know what, we can show them how to do it. They've lit the fire for us, and now we want to go and do it even better. Fantastic. So that would also be a really good marker of success. And mainstream media, I guess, would be the key.
So perhaps down the line, you would be working together with both Grainwaves. If it's successful and the government says, yes, let's look into transitioning, then we could get Grainwaves on board as well. So that would be very nice to be working together later.
Absolutely. Well, as Mark said, I'm still on the chat group, but I just haven't had time to really contribute very much. But there'll always be a part of me in Grainwaves because I designed the logo.
Yeah. So would you say that with this legal challenge, it might even be quite positive if the government would say, okay, you're right, factory farming is very bad, let's replace it with regenerative agriculture, which is I think what you meant by organic, and then it would become immediately quite clear that there's no way to supply the same demand with regenerative. So that would in a way put the lid on that story. So it might actually be quite positive if they were to say, okay, the only alternative then is to go to regenerative agriculture, because they would see right away that it doesn't work logistically or to scale. So that might actually be a positive, since they wouldn't be able to replace it with regenerative agriculture.
No, that's right. And
there isn't really anything they can do.
No, there isn't. The only way to replace it is by a reduction in meat and dairy consumption. That's the only way you can move forward. We don't make a point of telling everybody that is the outcome of scrapping factory farming, but clearly it is. So
yeah, exactly. So can you also let us know, so what is a typical day or week for you since this campaign began? Because I assume you're also working on it full time.
Yep, so I've been flat out on it for a year. So first of all, we were looking at issues surrounding the Animal Welfare Act. We spent an awful lot of time researching that. Then we started researching zoonotics, antibiotic resistance. So I spent an awful lot of my time sitting on the computer, researching documents, putting information together, trying to identify what the government themselves have said about things that we can say, well, you know, in 2006 you said this, but this hasn't happened. So huge amounts of research. Increasing contact with the legal team as we move forward. Very kind of the legal team are a fantastic legal team, and because of that they're also incredibly busy, so quite often they'll come quite late on and say we need this or we need something else, and we have to all run around like crazy to try and get that to them. And then it's posting out on Facebook, contacting experts has been a big part of what we've been doing more recently to get expert witnesses in. And we were really lucky to get, with the help of a lot of people, some of them on this call, we got 80 witnesses come forward from all parts of the world, from Canada, Australia, Hong Kong, and various places in between, all putting witness statements forward, which has been absolutely fantastic. So that's been more recently a huge amount of work, contacting them and getting more information from them, getting them to sign their form, and so it's very much just sort of facilitating that process so that we're ready for Monday. But it's, that's been a more recent kind of activity.
Yeah, so I see there's a lot of supporters on your site and some very, people that are well known as well. Would you like to say a little bit more about them, and maybe also about your legal team?
Yeah, so we've had some fantastic supporters. Some of them are on this call, and they've put us in touch with a huge amount of other people. So Liz and Cher and Judith put us in touch with Kip Anderson, for example. So he put a witness statement forward. We've had T. Colin Campbell put a witness statement in. It's reached some people who are really influential out there, which is absolutely fantastic. I think it does help that we've got Michael Mansfield as our lead QC, because certainly people in the UK will know Michael for his work on Grenfell Towers, the Hillsborough football disaster, big human rights cases. Stephen Lawrence case, he's taken a huge number of cases that people would be aware of. And so sometimes just having Michael Mansfield's name has opened some doors for us. And then backing Michael, we've got a guy called Philip Rule, who, when you sit in a meeting on Zoom with Philip, he's quite quiet. And he came on later on into the case, and we asked him a legal question, and he suddenly turned into this amazingly powerful speaker. So Michael and Philip will be the two going to court. For those of you that don't know, because I knew nothing about this, I've had to learn all of it. In a judicial review, I don't get to go to court. None of us do. It's all done through the barristers. So the barristers put in a big bundle of evidence and take that to see if we can get a court hearing. And the only people who speak are the barristers. So we are so reliant on them understanding the issues, driving the issues forward. And when Philip turned into court mode, it was just like, we all went, whoa, fantastic. Yeah, we've got a really good person here. And then the third person in the team is Lorna, who's also a barrister. But in this scenario, Lorna is taking the more of a solicitor's role, in that she's liaising with us, she's gathering the witness statements, she's interviewing some witnesses, she is helping us put our witness statements together. So she's the one who we most closely liaise with. And as I say, she's gone vegan as a result of what we've sent her as evidence for the case. And she now completely gets all of it and is totally behind us. So I don't think we could have had a better legal team. There are occasions when I wish they weren't quite so busy, because then we'd have a bit more time to prepare things rather than having things thrown at us that we've got to do with a day's notice. But other than that, they are absolutely brilliant. So we're really confident that they will do this case with absolute passion. And just one final bit on that, Lorna was telling me a few days ago that her and Philip had decided that going forward they were only going to take these sorts of cases that could really make a big difference for the planet and the future. So they've had as a result, which is just lovely, that as a result they've had a complete reshift of what they want to spend their time doing, which is just amazing.
That is amazing. Yeah, that's really. So if people want to get involved with Mark's project or with yours, then they can go to www.grainwaves.org for Grainwaves, and www.scrapfactoryfarming.org for this case. And they can also maybe ask if they want to do the same thing themselves. They can get in touch get some details about how they could possibly start the same initiatives wherever they are. Is that right?
Yes.
Great. So we're going to now open it up to some questions. I see that somebody already put a question in the chat. So maybe Alison would like to go first, if that was a question. Alison, did you have a question for Mark or for Jane?
It wasn't really a question. It was just that as part of Animal Rebellion, we had someone who sounds like a rich CEO offers some support via Animal Rebellion. It came through our Proton email, and we weren't sure about him, so we're investigating at the moment. But if he might be someone who could offer money, that was all. He's an ex oil and gas CEO who is now regretting that. I don't know. We felt a bit like not sure about it, so James is looking into it. That was just a thought. But I love what you're doing. Great, brilliant. Thank you so much. It's fabulous. And I did give a little bit of money.
Yeah, it's very
Thank you.
inspiring.
Thank you.
Yeah, an oil and gas magnate having a midlife crisis and a lot of regrets could be very useful, I think, to the movement.
Just with regard to anybody contacting me, so there is a contact form on the website, so that can be filled in. And my email is pretty straightforward. It's mark@grainwaves.org. So reach out however you would like to reach out.
mark@grainwaves.org.
Yeah.
Great. So are there any more questions for Jane or for Mark? Don't be shy. Yeah, go ahead, Judith.
Hi there. So I have some connections in business, particularly with regards to businesses that have charitable foundations supporting, wanting to do the right thing for the environment. And also, for example, heads of sustainability, for example, one of the largest retailers in the world. So I'd be happy to follow up after this call with some further suggestions and also have some connections feeding in at the moment onto some government task forces. There's one for, it's called TIGA. So I think it's a task force for innovation, growth and regulatory reform. So there may be some opportunities there as well. So perhaps we can connect afterwards and follow up, and I can put together something, some bullet points and some suggestions and so on.
That sounds amazing. Is that specific for Mark or for both?
For both.
That'd be
Wow.
fabulous. Thank you, Judith.
Yeah, that's.
And congratulations on all your good works. I mean, truly inspiring.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
So are there any more questions? You might like to, I don't know where all of you are based, but I don't know if any of you have considered such an initiative wherever you are. I don't think everyone here is from the UK. Yeah, have you thought about doing something like this, setting up something like this yourself?
It is indeed truly inspiring, and I mean, we are really wishing you the best and following up, because if we could do this in Argentina, it would be absolutely amazing. So yes, truly waiting for this, how it evolves, and that it can be contagious, and we can do it here too. Yes.
Yeah, can you imagine if there was this type of challenge to the government in every single country? It would be impossible to ignore. I think this would put the subject on the table like nothing else. So let's hope that everybody does follow suit. Yeah. So any questions for Mark about this project to offer support to any business that wants to go vegan from could be just from you know, like a food truck, you know, some person selling hot dogs or whatever on a square, to a whole farm that wants to transition. They're there to support anybody. And if they don't have the expertise, they'll find someone who does have the expertise. So I believe, Mark, you were also building up a network of experts that you could call on in such a situation. Isn't that right?
Pretty much, yes. So, I mean, we've decided we're generating, as well as the actually, let me start again. So we're offering the consultancy services, like the key part of Grainwaves. But on top of that, we're also generating 3 networks to offer support and also to get support. So we do a general support network, which is, if anybody that knows Challenge 22, it's a very similar kind of idea to Challenge 22, but for businesses. It's not limited to 22 days, but they go on there with other businesses that are also transitioning, and if they have any struggles, they can ask other people that are in similar situations. We have what we're calling a Unity network, which is a network for, if you're a vegan business of any kind, we want you in the Unity network. So the idea of that one is it's just ultimately a support group and an idea sharing group, just to make sure that everybody knows what they're doing after they've done that transition. So a good example of this would be, for example, Jay Wild. Most people here probably know him. Just in case you don't, he had a farm, it was a dairy farm, and he decided not to do that anymore. He's now 100% vegan, 100% plant-based, but he does still struggle with, for example, how to keep bugs away from plants in a veganic way. So the idea of the Unity network is that even if you are already 100% vegan, you still have support where you can get answers to these kind of questions. And the third group is a bit more niche. It's a collaboration network. And the collaboration network is for other movers in the plant-based world. So we've got, these are for people like, James Humane Being, possibly they would join the collaboration network, people like the Vegan Society. We have actually now started reaching out to a few of these places now. People like Beyond Animal, they've now joined. We've spoken to Rowdy Girl Sanctuary, which we're actually hoping they're going to be distributing our promo video, and we've got that up and running as well. So yeah, so the idea of the networks, it's not just about making that change, it's about sustaining that change once they've actually done it.
I see. I have a question here about what the Grainwaves consultancy fee is for instance, to transition a restaurant, but I believe that you don't charge fees at the moment. Isn't that right?
So we've had much deliberation about this, because although we were a non-profit, we, particularly myself, a lot of us are spending a lot of time on this, and I'm now working full time on it. So we want to be able to offer the service completely free of charge. That's kind of the ideal goal, but until we get kind of secure any funding, we're not going to be able to do that. So what we've decided to do is that we've kind of looked at current consultancy rates and we've halved it. And so we're estimating roughly £1,200 for a restaurant to be transitioned, for example. Now the figures are very much going to be on a case-by-case basis. We're literally going to do it for as little as we possibly can do, but as it stands right now, we are going to have to charge just to keep ourselves going. Otherwise, we'll be dead in the water, as it were. Our hope is that once we get some kind of funding in place, we're even investigating potentially government grants and things like this as well. And if those sorts of things happen, then we will be in a position where we can literally offer the whole service completely free of charge, no matter how long or how big of a task it is. That is our end goal, but we're not quite there yet.
Yeah, and of course, Animal Rebellion is running a plant-based schools campaign. Have you thought of perhaps collaborating on that campaign in order to offer some expertise to the transitioning schools? Is there a way that Grainwaves could play a part in that?
We certainly could do. To be fair, it's not something I know a lot about. So yeah, that does certainly sound interesting, though, and certainly worth looking into. Yeah, for sure. Need to find out some information about that, I think.
Yeah, I see a question. Can businesses see a brief outline of how to transition on your website without paying a fee? So, for instance, if they're trying to get an idea of how that would look, can they get an idea without paying up front? I think that's the question, if I'm right.
So, I mean, on the website currently, we've got a very basic guide to what we will do. But the catch with businesses is that there's so many different type of businesses that they're all going to be different. Even one type of restaurant versus a different type of restaurant, they're not necessarily going to transition in the same way. I guess to a certain degree, that's kind of where the tricky part comes in. As being part of Grainwaves, I'm very much of an abolitionist as far as animal consumption is concerned, but we are going to these businesses and we can't turn around. We have to be realistic. We can't turn around and expect them to say, yeah, you know what, we are going to transition, we're going to stop everything we're doing now, and we're going to go 100% plant-based overnight. It just doesn't happen that way. We've kind of had to take a back you know, we have to accept that they're going to turn around and say, let's add 1 or 2 items, see how those go. Oh, they went really well, let's add 1 or 2 more items. So we know that those transitions are it's going to be a slow process for each like individual business. And because each business is completely different, it's not really possible to have a step-by-step guide on the website. Once we've done like a few more transitions, we might have a very, very basic guide on there, and then they can contact us if they need a bit more assistance. So, you know, we will have further information on there, but as it stands right now, there isn't that in place, no.
So Alison, I believe that you are involved with the Schools Council campaign, is that right? Proveg are helping the schools. Could you say something about, could you let us know something about that, how that works?
Yeah, sure. There's a few of us on the national team, and we've got about 40 councils involved, and we're making a request using lots and lots of science-based evidence, and it's all climate emissions, to have a minimum of 2 plant-based meals each week, to have plant-based days, with a view to increasing that. And we're working very closely with Proveg, who are superb, because they go into schools, they help with menu packaging, they help with messages, they help with the way the menus laid out, all sorts of really fantastic skills. And I'm sure you know Proveg want the world to be 50% reduction in meat and dairy and all animal produce. I think it's 2030 they want that by. So and we've got a fantastic woman called Colette who helps us loads. So I'm running it in Brighton, and I did a deputation and got it through, and I'm working on how to make it. Well, we're also lobbying the government as well, because the school standards are out of date now. And I don't know if anybody saw Cheesegate in the papers 3 weeks ago. That was me. It was in all the national papers, don't worry about it. They picked up on something I said about using oat milk instead of dairy. Yeah.
I think everybody's curious now. Maybe you can just tell us what Cheesegate was.
When I made a 5-minute presentation to full council, and it was quite an impassioned plea after I'd said all the science and the reasons for it. I said another reason arguably could be that, given that the government are insisting that dairy is available every single day in schools and school meals, it could be argued that there's a racist element, because 65% of the world's population are lactose intolerant, and a high proportion of those people are from the ethnic minority groups and people of colour. And that's what I said. And then that morphed into cheese is racist.
Okay.
But what was good with that was it went into about 9 papers all over the place. I got a lot of abuse, but I didn't take it personally. But anyway, and they kept in all of the science that I'd said, absolutely all of it, in the Sun, in the Daily Mail, in all of those really rubbishy papers. Wow. So we felt in Animal Rebellion that was actually kind of a bit of a win in a way, you know, just having.
That is really awesome. Yeah. Because if you can get the science out in some way, then that's the way to do it. I see a question here. If businesses can see any transition case studies. So there are, of course, many examples of people switching to plant-based models, switching their farms and their businesses. We just, all over the news, of course, these restaurants, big famous restaurants going plant-based. And I think now is possibly a time where there's an extra push, because people are reopening after the pandemic, gives them a chance to rethink everything. So do you have case studies, or would that be an idea to have case studies available to inspire people, Mark?
Yeah, so we were actually working on one, and then lockdown happened. So it's caused a bit of havoc, unfortunately, which obviously it has done for a lot of people. So Burger Stacks was going to be our main, because it went so well, that whole transition, but we've still got the final couple of stages to do. But it's meant that we've needed to go and visit him, which he was actually advised not to let anybody come round, even as in a professional sense. So
I think you could also do studies from other groups that you didn't help, but that did make the transition, just to inspire people about what's possible. I think that was what the question was, not necessarily case studies of ones that transition through great ways, but just in general. Oh,
yeah, we haven't done it yet, but you know what? I'm actually going to write it down now.
Yeah, thanks for the tip. Maggie?
Yeah. So yeah, we will have our own one on there quite soon, we're hoping. But yeah, I think it probably is a good idea to have one or two on there, certainly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
People can see what's possible.
Mm.
So any more questions? Of course, Jane, when is, you said that it would help if people came and protest on the date of the court. You mean outside the court?
Yeah, that would be great. Again, just to raise the media opportunity around it. And yeah, if we could get Animal Rebellion out there with the pink slaughter truck, that would be awesome. Unfortunately, I won't be able to super glue myself to it, but much so I'd love to. But yeah, so things like that would, you know, again, it's just raising the media opportunity. So unfortunately, we don't know when that is yet. We may not even be given a court opportunity. They may turn it down, in which case we have to appeal. And so the whole process at the moment is still a little bit vague in terms of timings, because we, you know, it has to go in, DEFRA have to respond, then we have to get allocated a judge, and then the judge decides whether we get a full hearing or we don't get a full hearing, then we have to appeal. So I can't give a specific date, but it's I think it's going to be earliest August now, probably September at the absolute earliest. But anybody in the UK or anybody anywhere else who wants to take the opportunity to do a protest that gets in the paper would be great.
And you know where the location would be, though?
It'll be filed in London. I don't know exactly where the court is. I haven't found that out yet, but it will be in London.
So it might be idea to create already an event that people can sign up for. I don't know which groups would like to support, but Animal Rebellion is an obvious one. And then with a date to be announced, or a date, you know, which can be changed, you know, a tentative date,
yeah,
a tentative place, and then people can already start to sign up for this,
Yeah.
and they're ready for it.
It's maybe a little bit early. I mean, we have been told we should get at least 5 weeks notice of the court date, but I am talking to Animal Rebellion. We're looking at potentially doing something centered around pandemics. You may have seen the video footage of the rebellion where people had the plague masks on, which was really powerful. You know, so something of that kind of dramatic theme would, again, just hopefully help engage a bit more press interest in it. So.
Great. I actually have a question here for Alison because of the topic of the schools campaign. So Judith would like to know what support would be the most helpful for the school campaign.
Actually, I don't mean to sound awful and ungrateful here, but we're really doing very well right now. But thank you very much, Judith. Thank you very much. Because Colette's so brilliant and she's going to help out. She can do 50 or more schools, and where I am in Brighton, we've got all sorts of organisations who are really skilled at being vegan chefs, and you know, so and I know in the rest of the country there's sometimes problems, but we're okay. Thank you. I don't know. I was feeling a bit mean saying that, Judith, but thanks, sweetheart.
Well, I'm going to pile even more offers for help onto you, Alison. Cher would say, it says, as a possible incentive with the school campaigns, there is a series of 26 A to Z children's books available, which could be donated to the schools getting on board.
Oh, wow, that's lovely.
Would that be something?
That's absolutely gorgeous. Wow, are you connected with Animal Rebellion, Cher, or are you something else?
I don't see. Oh yeah, Cher, you're on mute.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Alison.
I think it's fabulous lovely thing.
Hi. Yes, so I'm an author of 33 books, and I co-authored with Maggie the meditations which launched the Calm app, if you're familiar with that. But my series of 26 books for children, it's called Animals Actually, and they're plant-based, but not in a way where it's shoving it down your throat. You know, they're very sweet and funny and uplifting and colourful for young children, very young children, primary school age. But absolutely, you know, if as an incentive, or if it would help, if you were each school that came on board, we could donate to the school library a full set of the 26 books.
Wow, that would be amazing. Do you mind if I take your email somewhere? I mean, it's a bit boring for everybody else, isn't it? But
No, I can, yes, it's animals as in more than one animal, plural, animals actually
yeah,
@gmail.com.
that is
And if you
lovely.
want to have a quick look, yes, you can, if you go to my website, if you just Google me, all the stuff will come up. It's Cher Chevalier, should be showing on the thing. But I'd be very happy to do that. Me and my team would be very happy to assist with that.
Oh, that's lovely. I love that. Just a nice thing my mum used to do when she was a primary school teacher. She'd tell the children of 4 stories about animals, and it could be, she said, Bessie the cow, and then she said, just to let you know, children, you might be having Bessie for lunch. And none of the children liked that at all, and they and the parents were really furious with my mum, but she just stood her ground and she said, do you want me to lie to your children?
Wow. Do you know, I so love that, Alison. I come from a background of 4 generations of vegetarians and vegans. And I didn't know until I went to school that people ate animals. So when I was 4 and a half, I began school. I didn't know. My grandparents, my parents, yeah, they didn't eat animals. So but yes, it was horrifying for me. And I thought that they were joking, the kids teasing me, eating animals. Yeah, and I'm still horrified that people eat animals. So.
I'm still horrified too, and I haven't eaten anyone for 40 years.
So most of my books are quite serious books about meditation and mysticism and spirituality. But because I'm so passionate about animals and people not eating them, yeah, so I wrote the series of books for kids, and yeah, you'd be very, very welcome to have them if it'll help.
It will. Can I, what contact details would you allow me to put on a Telegram group of our activists who are involved in this? Is this all right?
Yeah, you could definitely put my email on there. That'd be fine. If you personally wanted to have my number, I can give it to you, or Jane's got my number. But on a group, you could definitely put my email for sure, and my website if you wanted to. Or if you just put Cher Chevalier, if you Google that, then most of my work and books come up anyway.
Oh, lovely. I love what you're doing.
Doing my bit.
That's an Anna Rebellion thing.
Love it.
Oh, that is really awesome. So you see how just getting together like this, we're already inspiring each other. And I also feel like I have to lodge something against the government, and I have to set up a company that supports businesses. And I think we can all do those things. You know, we can all set up stuff, and especially since Jane and Mark have led the way now. Does anyone have any final questions? Because I think we've come to the end of this session. If you have any final questions.
Could I just make one quick point, Billy, that I forgot to mention earlier? It was with Mark, what he said. We're setting up a couple of Slack chat groups, and Pete is organising one of those around planning applications. So we've got a whole group of organisations now who are joining together to lobby against factory farm planning applications, including people like Greenpeace are on there, Friends of the Earth are on there. So that's, again, something like that is brilliant, where we've got to all start working together. So you're absolutely right, Billy, something like this is fantastic. And we're also going to set up a second one, Friends of Humane Being, again, where we can just try and pull everybody together and share and bounce ideas, and hopefully some of you will be able to join us on that. And finally, Liz, Cher and Judith, I'm so sorry it's taken me forever to do the Spanish translation of the booklet, but it will be with you soon.
So this planning objections, this is also on your site. I had a look at it. I didn't quite understand how people could help with that. So maybe you could also just, because it's directly relevant for people who want to help now already, could you just say something about that? It's about blocking, it's about scanning to see which planning permissions have been granted and trying to block them on a community level or on a council level.
It's trying to get them before they've been put through. So it's when they're at the application stage. So Pete and his other half are scanning the horizons to see what they can pick up, and we're also working with other groups. So if one group finds for example, a rabbit farm is being planned, we can start and try and work together and mobilise objections to go in, because a petition unfortunately only classes as one objection, even if it's got thousands of signatures on it, although it does make it more newsworthy. But they are meant to count individual objections, each as one, as long as it's tailored and, you know, not just cut and paste completely. And so we're just trying to mobilise people to do that. And, you know, it's showing up some really interesting kind of trends. So on the ones we've monitored so far, there is an environmental permit limit for 2,000 pigs. You have to get an environmental permit if it's above that. Out of nearly all the planning applications that have gone in for pig farms that we've monitored, most of those come in just under 2,000, surprise, surprise. So it just shows that people are playing the system. Planning law is incredibly difficult to challenge because the law is in favour of development. But if we can start lodging the objections, we can start raising issues, and particularly if we can get environmental messages into it, we might be able to stop them. But equally, it gives us really good grounds to say in future that the planning legislation is completely flawed and needs to change. So,
how do people do that? They go to your site, they see which things they can sign up.
Yeah, so there's a download, ones to download on the website, and also on our social media on Facebook. We post them out if one comes up and say, please object. I've also got a database of 500 people who've signed up now, that as soon as we get a planning application we want to object to, somebody puts together an objection letter, and quite often that's the last few ones, and we send that out to people and say, please use this as a template and get it in.
People need to send it by post to.
No, you can do it by email. No, it can go by email. So it's just, again, really just getting people mobilized so that we all start talking together and sharing information and ideas. And we've got to stop these happening in the first place. You know, if they don't get developed, then hopefully the numbers will decrease over time. So it's quite an important part of the chain.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. Any more questions for Jane and Mark before we close? Otherwise, yeah. So I want to really thank Jane for joining, and also Mark for joining and for sharing this with us. Very inspiring, and also for all of you for joining this. And yeah, so let's finish with the Animal Rebellion jazz hand. And hope to see you all again soon. If you have any more questions to Jane and Mark, you can find them on the contact details that we already gave. So I think we'll close it here then.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, have a lovely evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye.
Thanks, Billy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.